Guess what? We're back in Daytona Beach. My name is Kenny Abbott with the CycleVision Network, CVN, and this is a special edition of Exhaust Noise live from Daytona. We have the one and only Pat Gonsalves, one of the voices of Daytona, here with us. We're super blessed and really excited to have you here, Pat. We've had a busy day already. We started about 8 o'clock this morning down on the beach at the Daytona 200 Monument. Tell us a little bit about that and what that ceremony was about and kind of recap what happened down there.
Well, Kenny, first of all, great to be working with you, and hopefully over the next 4 days we can bring those folks who didn't get a chance to come down here to Daytona for Bike Week, all of the goings-on, the results, who's winning, who's disappointing. But it all started in terms of the road racing, if you will. This morning at about 10 o'clock, we kicked off the official ceremony for the Daytona 200 Monument. And for those who aren't familiar with the monument, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in American road racing. It was started some 22 years ago by Dick Clamforth, who had won 3 times when the Daytona 200 was run on the beach. And as it had moved in 1961 to the Speedway, Dick wanted to make sure that, along with himself, all of the other great riders who won the Daytona 200 on the old beach course, where they'd run up Daytona Beach, make a sharp left onto what is now A1A, down to the far south turn, and then again out onto the beach. Of course, when you're racing on the Daytona Beach, you've got to time the start and the finish so you account for the tides. And there were some times there where it was getting the tide was coming in, and boy, that track was getting narrow and narrower. So every Wednesday of Bike Week, Dick Clamforth's daughter, Christy Clamforth, and Al Charles, her partner, and
we should mention Al Charles not only is her partner and helps with this, but he's also part of ARMA, so he's very well tied into vintage racing and a lot of the folks that are being inducted into what's essentially the Daytona 200 or the Daytona Racing Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, Al was the race director last year for ARMA. He isn't this year, but very busy with the monument. And he was the guy who said, you know what? Our guest of honor this year should be a great young rider, and that is Stefano Mesa. And I'm saying Stefano because for years I was saying Stefano, as many people were, but it is officially Stefano Mesa. And, of course, like the tennis player, Stefano Tsitsipas. So he was great today down at the monument. Of course, last October, Kenny, you were here as part of the announce team with Richard Chambers for the ASRA Fall Cycle Scene races, and that was when Stefano Mesa set the all-time motorcycle track record here at Daytona, a minute 44.046.
Unbelievable.
Not on a qualifying tire, on a BMW S1000RR.
Race tire.
Yeah.
So, yep, he had the Pirelli race tire on. And, the first couple laps were fast, and you could tell it was going to be a fast race. He threw down a lap. I think he ended up breaking the initial record. And let's be honest, most track records are broken by thousandths, maybe hundredths of a second. It's rare that you see it drop by 0.5 of a second, but you could feel that the first couple laps were faster than normal. And when he came around and it was a full half second faster than his previous lap record that he set the year prior on the Kawasaki, you just felt that this was going to be special because the tires weren't even really up to temperature yet. And then the next lap, he dropped it a full second, and it just, you could feel the energy. You could feel how fast that lap was. It was really exciting.
Yeah, so Stefano was there signing autographs. We had a number of other folks who came out, excuse me, and there were 4 plaques that were unveiled, fighting a bit of a Daytona cold. Roger Lyle was one of those. Roger, of course, ran the motorcycle excitement program at Summit Point.
Yeah, not to mention the Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Club. When I first got involved in motorcycle road racing in 1985, Roger Lyle and the Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Club were doing all of the corner working in the Mid-Atlantic region at Summit Point Raceway, but they were also helping with the U.S. Marshals down here at Daytona Beach, at Daytona International Speedway, as well as Loudon, and Roger was very instrumental in all of that. When I was asked in 2000 to run the Formula USA National Road Racing Series, I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on board as a national safety director than Roger Lyle. So he was actually my national safety director with Formula USA and Championship Cup Series. So as we traveled around the country to different racetracks, we were implementing a standardization of flag protocols and safety procedures and everything else. Most all of that headed by Roger Lyle and what he had done with AMA Pro Racing, the U.S. Marshals, and everything that they had done here at the Speedway. So it was really exciting to see him there.
Well, Roger's done it all, and he even did a little bit of announcing here with Richard and myself over the years. But it was great to see Roger. He had a number of his friends out, and I think it was a very special time for him,
Joan.
as it was for the family of T.C. Christensen, who of course was the pilot of that legendary Hog Slayer drag racing bike, the double-engine Norton, that was so dominant through the early to mid 70s. And the guy who built that bike, John Gregory, turns 90 years old tomorrow. Man, he is in incredible shape.
He looks great.
For 90. And they had a big, beautiful cake that was shared with everyone who made it to the monument this morning. And had a great interview with John. And, of course, he invented the slipper clutch. Unfortunately, he didn't patent it, and everybody copied it and borrowed it. But, there's some technology that has gone on since it was invented in the 70s.
Yeah.
But, John was great, and a number of his friends were out there. So that was the second of the plaques that was unveiled. Eddie Atkins, what a great guy. 6 decades of being involved in flat track racing. And Eddie's wife was there. A number of his family members was there, along with this good friend. And that was a really, a very, very special time. And then the last plaque that we unveiled at the monument this morning was that of Stephen Pate. And as we said, the Daytona Monument was created to recognize and pay tribute to all of those riders who won on the old beach course. Well, since then, it's sort of taken on a life of its own. All of the riders who have won here at Daytona International Speedway are on there, along with other folks who have been involved in the racing, including the late Duke Pennell. There's a beautiful shot of Duke and the artistry that he displayed with the checkered flag. And Duke was always one of the real special people we enjoyed meeting and hanging out when we came to Daytona.
Always had great stories.
So, the monument, Kenny, has become something for all motorcyclists and not just road racing. There are plaques there for flat trackers, motocross, drag racing guys, and it really is a special place. So,
and if you haven't been there, it's really easy to find. It's actually you can just punch it into Google and it takes you right there. But it's behind the Daytona Beach Hilton.
Yep.
There's a little mall there and some restaurants. It's behind the Bubba Gump Shrimp Restaurant.
Just south of the big old not the grandstand, the big stage there, the band shell that's there.
Yep. It's a beautiful place, and so there are a lot of places that people want to see when they come to Daytona Beach or they come to Daytona Speedway. That really needs to be one of them. Not only to just recognize the history of the Daytona Speedway and the Daytona 200, but motorcycling history in general. It really is a walk through history. Obviously, as we transition to the Daytona 200 week, it's the 50th anniversary of Giacomo Agostini winning the Daytona 200, the 40th anniversary of Kenny Roberts winning for the 3rd time, the 30th anniversary of the one and only Scott Russell. It's the 20th anniversary of Matt Mladen and the 10th anniversary of one of Danny Eslick's wins. And I know you were here for a good handful of those. But how does it feel for you to be part of the history? Because you and Richard have a plaque there as well. How does it feel for you to be part of that history as well, Pat?
Well, Kenny, it really is an honor. As I've said to Richard, before Pat Gonsalves and Richard Chambers did the announcing at Daytona, there was a guy by the name of Roxy Rockwood. And when I came here 50 years ago, as a race fan, I had just started announcing. but certainly not at the level or had the experience to come here and announce at Daytona. So Roxy Rockwood was the PA voice when I came here in '74 to watch Agostini win. So that was 50 years ago, and I've only missed once. That was during the pandemic in 2021.
Yeah.
So it is always a great way to sort of break up the winter, to come down here. But as I said to Richard as well, now that we come back and do the races in October, and hopefully we can work with you this October as the fall cycle scene. ASRA races are here October the 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Yeah.
So we're still doing those, but Moto America has taken over the Daytona 200, have done a fabulous job, and we'll get into the entry list. As I came here 50 years ago, the number of Canadian riders, European riders, it was very much an international event.
Yeah.
And I think this year it is the best it's been in probably 2 decades, and we'll get into some of the riders. So Moto America's done a great job, and they've got their team of announcers, and they'll do a great job starting tomorrow of covering all the practice, the qualifying, and the race action.
And we should probably mention that if you want to catch all that race action live, it's really easy. You just go to Moto America Live Plus. You can subscribe for that. They had a preseason rate. It was $89. It's now, I think it goes up to $110 starting this week. So but go to Moto America Live Plus, subscribe to that, and you can watch not only live, but you can go back and watch any of the races. They have practice and qualifying. Everything is all there. And because they're doing that live every day of the event, they just pump that broadcast through the PA system here at Daytona International Speedway. And so it relegates us to the media center and doing other fun things. So, but go to Moto America Live Plus. You'll be able to watch all of that. Make sure you subscribe, and you'll be able to catch not only all the action from here at Daytona, but the entire Moto America schedule. So that's how we keep up on everything here. And make sure you subscribe to all the great magazines and stuff up there. Make sure you're following Cycle Vision Network on social media, and we'll be bringing you more coverage from the events throughout the year as well. So what do you want to transition to next? Dirt track or road racing?
Just before I want to sort of put a cap on the Daytona 200 Monument celebration. As we said, we had the big cake for John Gregory, but tomorrow morning is sort of the second half of the Daytona 200 Monument doubleheader. On Thursday morning, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at the Eagles on US 1 on Ridgewood, for those who may be in the Daytona Beach area tuning in, we've got the Over the Hill Gang breakfast. And so that traditionally was a breakfast where racers who had run on the beach were invited to come to the breakfast, tell their stories. And but you never know who's going to show up. At the monument today, we had Jimmy Felice. What a great rider Jimmy was, and some of the international lightweight 250 races that he ran in. So tomorrow morning, it's about a mile south of Dunlawton on Ridgewood, which is US 1, is the breakfast. Doors open at 8. The breakfast buffet starts at 8:30, and there'll be lots of stuff going on. And Kenny, you mentioned the 50th anniversary of Giacomo Agostini's win. Famed photographer Bill Petrol put together a beautiful shot of Agostini on that Yamaha TZ750 along with his headshot from Victory Lane when he won the race. And we've got a couple of those framed, as well as a Kenny Roberts framed photo from his win in '84 that are going to be auctioned off to help raise funds. So you're invited to join us if you're in the Daytona Beach area tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock for the Over the Hill Gang breakfast. Lots going on over the next 3 days, Kenny. I don't know if we're going to be able to shoehorn it into the remaining time we've got.
Well, and it's interesting because it's not as jam packed as it used to be, right? We used to
be 8 days of events.
Yeah. And we had Championship Cup Series racing. Supercross was on Friday night. The drag races up in Gainesville, so they've really spread it out. But there's still a lot going on for sure.
Yeah. Well, of course, the Daytona Supercross ran last Saturday night. Monday and Tuesday of this week, I think they had a little bit of rain at times, was the Ricky Carmichael Amateur Supercross, ran on Sunday and Monday. And then yesterday was the Vintage Supercross and ATV racing. So the Speedway has been busy. Today is sort of the calm before the storm, where all of the road race teams roll in here, get set up, go through registration, go through tech inspection, and they'll be ready bright and early tomorrow morning to get to the racetrack.
As we rolled in yesterday, Alan and I, we were out in the credential lot with all the RVs and trucks and everything. Of course, one of the big things happens before everybody rolls in is they wash all the big rigs before they get into the speedway. But some of the teams were out there already practicing their Daytona 200 pit stops because they just hadn't had much time to have everybody together doing that. And so they've got the bikes ready, they've got everything ready to go, but they didn't have everyone on the same page doing those pit stops. So as you know, that's one of the most important pieces of that Daytona 200. So some of the teams were out there practicing last night.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully we'll see some folks come out to the breakfast tomorrow morning at the Eagles there on US 1. But before we even get into looking at the entry list that is strong in all four of the classes, sort of some late news coming out. One of the entries that was scratched, I believe just today, was a Canadian rider who was actually born in Guyana, South America, Elliot Vieira, on a Ducati. The bike just wasn't ready to go. So I talked to his manager, Clive Nigakeen. They've scratched his entry. Even though he was on an underpowered Yamaha here last year that was Bridgestone shot, ended up finishing 15th. And he was looking to, at least duplicate that this year, even with the strong field of riders. So he's the one scratch. That's the only one I've heard so far. So I think right now you're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of about 65, 66 entries. The big question is, how fast will the pole time be, and where does that create a cutoff? Because you've got to qualify within 110% of the pole time. The other bit of news, today was supposed to be a Bridgestone test session up at Jennings GP. Apparently, yesterday they had rain. It pretty much got washed out. I talked to JF Sear, whose son Maverick Sear is entered in the Daytona 200 on the number 104 Triumph. And that's a whole other story there, where his ride is a tribute to the late Chris Ellis, who was with Triumph. Sadly, we lost Chris a couple of years ago, but he was the guy that brought Triumph back to the Daytona 200 that ultimately led to Danny Eslick's win in 2014. So there's this whole Triumph story that's going to evolve. But Sear is a talented young rider. He won both the Canadian Superbike and Sport Bike Championships last year, and was here in October. You were with us calling those races. Turned in some pretty impressive lap times.
Yeah, and people may not know the significance of why Bridgestone really needed or wanted to get in some more testing time. But, Dunlop Racing Tires has kind of dominated U.S. racing at the pro level for a long, long time. Pirelli has made some inroads, especially here at the Daytona 200. They have a tire that's done well here. They've had some riders that have finished on the podium or have won the race. But there are some big time riders and teams coming over from Europe all on Bridgestones. A lot of the Canadians coming down are all on Bridgestones. And they really wanted to get some extra time here at sea level to be able to run those Bridgestones in a couple extra days before they got to the Speedway. So it'll be really interesting. And as you mentioned, I think earlier, there was some rain that happened with that testing, but they were able to at least get the bikes dialed in a little bit more and play around in the rain a little bit and get some testing done. But that's why this Bridgestone story is really so significant. There are a lot of Bridgestone riders here this weekend, including the Yart Racing Team guys that are coming over, who won the World Championship Endurance Series last year. And they have to be one of the top contenders. All three of them have to be considered top contenders for the Daytona 200.
Well, Chuck Giacchetto was the guy who made that all happen here last October.
Yeah.
He built a very good bike, an R6 Yamaha, that Hanukkah and Fritz both got out there, and they just got faster and faster every time they were on the track. I think they ended up very close to going under a minute 50. So you're getting in the very competitive lap times. But I believe the bikes that they have, these have been built over in Europe, the Yamaha Austrian racing team. So these are going to be quality Yamaha motorcycles. But a big tip of the announcer's cap to Chuck Giacchetto. He's involved again here with his own team, and we'll be seeing him, I'm sure, tomorrow. But he did a great job in putting that program together for the yard team.
It'll be interesting to see how well they roll out, right off the truck tomorrow during first practice.
Yeah, session. Limited practice. There's that one practice for the Daytona 200 Super Sport riders. And then later in the afternoon, you start, that's the first round of qualifying.
They're on the clock.
And then we'll get the indication as to how well, certain riders are doing. If you have a problem, you really are behind the 8 ball trying to play catch up.
And this is not the place to have a problem.
Yeah. And they will seed the field. There'll be 30 plus riders in Group A.
Yeah.
Those will be, in theory, the fastest of the riders. And then others with perhaps not a lot of experience here at Daytona will be in Group B. So they will practice in those two separate groups and qualify as well later on tomorrow afternoon. And when we come back here for our Thursday show, we'll be able to run down those times, look at maybe some of the surprises from day one, some of the disappointments from day one, but also update on all the news that's going to evolve here over the next 3 days at Daytona.
Well, and speaking of that, Spectra Oils just put out a release where they're now the official partner of Moto America. It's a multi-year deal that just came out this week. Steel Commander, the all-American steel building manufacturer, they signed a 3-year deal to sponsor the Superbike class this year. And Bellissimoto, they do parts for Twins bikes. They just signed a multi-year deal as well to sponsor the Twins Cup class. They're based out of Las Vegas. I was just talking to Moto America a few minutes ago. I said, when did that come about? And they're like, we just released that. It literally happened just a couple days ago. So there's a lot happening here. One of the classes, Mission Foods has returned as the premier sponsor of 2 classes, including the Super Hooligans and King of the Baggers. Roland Sands Designs is back in with Super Hooligans again. So there's a lot happening there, and it's really good to see American road racing coming back, and it's great to see it all kick off here at Daytona International Speedway. It's good to have Moto America back here.
Yeah, Kenny, the problem I think anybody has when they come to Daytona is how do I fit it all in? And the fact is you don't fit it all in. You got to pick and choose where you're going to be going. Yeah. And in addition to what's happening inside of Daytona International Speedway, just in back of the big stadium is the Daytona Marketplace with about 60 aftermarket parts and accessories and clothing companies, and also many of the manufacturers with their demo rides. They're going to be going right on through the weekend. Yeah. So it is a busy Daytona Bike Week,
including Buell. So it's good to see the Buell brand back at Daytona. It's good to see the Buell brand back selling motorcycles again. I think they only sold about 50 motorcycles last year, so I think they're starting to get rolling, but they're taking orders for one of their new models. So it's pretty exciting. We actually stopped at at a buddy's place on the way down here at the Power Sports store in Cincinnati, and to see my buddy Les, and he actually has 2 Buells there. And what they're doing, Pat, is the dealers are able to keep a couple motorcycles in stock there. Customers can come in, look at them, and if they want to buy them, then they purchase the motorcycles, and then Buell ships the keys and the batteries, and then everything is assembled and ready to go, and off they go. So it provides an opportunity for the dealerships to not have any financial risk in stocking them. Customers still have a place to come see them, and then that dealership can actually facilitate the sale for them. So it's a different model.
Yeah, different model for sure. Yeah. Kenny, let's briefly touch on the American Flat Track Championship that kicks off here tomorrow night, the first of 2 nights. Royal Enfield has stepped up. They're the sponsors for rounds 1 and 2 on a very tight but challenging Daytona short track. You got these big Super Twins machines. It is a handful. And of course, before we went on the podcast there, we were talking about Jared Mees. What a career he has had, going after a record-setting 10th Grand National Championship if he can pull it off.
It's unbelievable.
He's never done great here at Daytona, but at least on the short track. But I think he's going to give it all he's got to try to win that 10th championship. But
yeah, and that's obviously going to be big for him and his team, and you have to think that more than ever before, everyone's going to be pulling for him and putting everything there is into that effort to get him that number 10.
Dallas Daniels on the Yamaha has run well here.
Yeah.
He's going to be giving him lots of competition. The Bauman brothers, Breyer and Bronson on the KTM Duke 790s. And so it's good to see some of these other brands in that Super Twin. So on our Friday show, we're going to bring you all of the results from Thursday night's American Flat Track Royal Enfield. And Royal Enfield, another manufacturer that's making a big push. They've unveiled the new Bullet 350 single. And then just to go back to the Monument this morning, we didn't mention it earlier, but BSA is making a return to the United States. We met the two gentlemen. They've got a 650 BSA Gold Star. The motorcycles, at least these, are being manufactured in India. I think in years to come, many of the models are going to be manufactured back in England, but they hope to have a dealer network of about 100 BSA dealers, but they're just getting started on that. And great that Royal Enfield has stepped up here to sponsor rounds 1 and 2 of the flat track. And before we get into the road racing stuff, there is that super ticket available if you're coming to Daytona and you want to catch all of the short track and all of the road racing. It's $100. It gets you 3 days here at the Speedway, including the Daytona 200, and then as well it gets you both nights at the Royal Enfield Daytona short track. That's a pretty good deal for $100.
Exciting. Yeah, it's it used to be pretty expensive just to get into the 200, and then you had to figure out, well, do I have enough cash to get to both? So it's a great opportunity, and while you're here on site, again, it's this facility is pretty massive, but it's all really close. It's an easy commute, great parking. It's and they've opened up a lot of camping on the infield here. So, and there's still some spots available there. So if you're doing both, it's really easy to camp in the infield and literally just walk through the tunnel, and now you're at the short track. So they've done a really good job of putting all that together. Again, Royal Enfield stepping up as the Royal Enfield North America stepping up as the OEM partner of the progressive AFT flat track series. You mentioned some of the riders. 69 Sammy Halbert will be contesting this weekend on the Dodge Brothers Castrol HD. Halbert, one of the winningest Daytona dirt track racers.
Yep, 4 wins here.
Ryan Varnes, number 34, he signed with Cameron Smith to ride their KTM for Schaefer's Motorsport. So so he's going to be on that 790 Duke in the Mission Twins AFT class, and then of course Factory Indian with Jared Mees, Troy Herfoss, the Australian, is going to be on an Indian this weekend as well. So there's a lot happening there, and we'll bring you that news as it happens here at Daytona International Speedway.
And just look at my notes here. You've got the AFT singles presented by Kicker, Cody Kopp, the defending champion on the KTM. But again, he's got to have a host of other riders gunning for him. You put that number 1 plate on the bike, you may as well put a bullseye on the back of your leathers.
Yeah.
So should be 2 great nights. The weather in Daytona looks like mid to high 70s over the next 3 days starting tomorrow, and very comfortable at night. You might need a light jacket if you're going to be checking out the short track, but they'll open the gates there at 3 o'clock for practice, and then opening ceremonies at 7, and then right on into the program with a big fireworks display when it's all over. So
and as we mentioned, Pat and I will bring you a recap every day at the end of each day from the road racing paddock, and then as soon as we get done here, we're going to jump out and we'll be over at the flat track, and we'll bring you some live coverage from the flat track every night as well. So we're really looking forward to this week. Make sure you're following Cycle Vision Network, CVN, and the Exhaust Noise podcast. Make sure you share that with all your friends and get them all tuned in here this week. So,
Kenny, why don't we quickly go through the 4 classes that are going to be racing here at the World Center of Racing over the next 4 days, starting with the Mission Roland Sands Design Super Hooligan class that continues to grow and attract new riders, new equipment. And of course, the guy carrying the #1 plate, Tyler O'Hara, he knows his way around Daytona International Speedway. And I think when you sort of try to handicap the race, he's going to be one of the guys up there in that lead draft.
Yeah, that S&S Indian motorcycle, he's riding the FTR 1200. That bike has proven itself year over year. You know, the first year of King of the Baggers, the Indians really stepped out there and really put it to the Harley guys, and they had to go back to the drawing board and make the bikes, you know, better, lighter, more horsepower, handle better. And so at place like Daytona, these bikes are very, very fast. And not to diminish the fact that these are Harleys and Indians racing in this bagger class, but some of these big bikes are approaching 180, 185 miles an hour around the super speedway here, which is unfathomable for some of these motorcycles when you see them on the dealership floors.
Yeah, indeed. Let's quickly go through some of the other riders here. Travis Wyman on the Saddleman Harley, along with Corey West.
Yeah.
You know, both of those guys are going to be up there in that lead pack.
Yeah.
And of course, veteran Nate Kern, one of the oldest riders in this class out of Cumming, Georgia, on the BMW R9T.
Yep.
So he'll be carrying the BMW brand in that Super Hooligans event.
He's been one of the BMW development riders for a while now, and you know, he raced here back in the Boxer Cup.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And he's been developing that motorcycle, so really exciting to see him back here at Daytona. You have Troy Herfoss, which is on the Indian FTR 1200 we mentioned, and then there's even a couple of KTM Dukes in the field, including Cole King, Andy DeBrino.
DeBrino is an interesting guy. He came to Daytona here about 3 years ago. Nobody had really heard about the guy. He was cleaning up in the Northwest. And here's this guy on this KTM. But do not count out Andy DeBrino. And, of course, he'll be looking forward to getting back to his home track of the Ridge later on in the season in Moto America.
Yeah. Hayden Schultz will be on one of the Pan Americans out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. You know, they're one of the Yart riders, Niccolo Canepa. You have to assume he's going to be fast as long as that motorcycle is ready to go, and he's on one of the Yamaha MT-09s.
Right, and it's interesting with Canepa, he was not here in October, just the other two Yart riders in Fritz and Hanukkah, and I think one of the reasons he has entered into the Super Hooligans class, just to get more track time and learn the racetrack that's going to help him in the Daytona 200. So I think that's a strategic move. And I see you've highlighted Jake Lewis. What a talented rider he is. He's on the third of the Saddleman Harley Davidsons. Don't count out Jake Lewis. He's going to be right there.
He's tall. He's got a lot of leverage for these big, heavy motorcycles too. So this could be the perfect racetrack for him. Shalina Marita, sorry, I always struggle to say her name. So Shalina, she'll be on one of the Ducati Monsters. Remember, Michael Barnes started a couple years ago on one of the Ducati Monsters from Fast by Faraci, and they had good luck. So we'll see if Shalina can get that Ducati up to speed. And then, of course, there's a lot of other XR 1200s and Pan Americans in the field. So Josh Siegel, Hawk Mazada, and then you get down to the number 137 machine of Stefano Mesa on the Tyler Cycle Racing Energetica, the RS.
Yeah, that Energica, we talked to him at actually Richard Chambers interviewed him at the Monument this morning when he was there signing autographs. Met his mom and dad, just great people, and they've traveled to every one of his races from when he was an amateur rider, and of course now certainly one of the top super sport riders, and I think on the right equipment he'll be right there in Superbike, but showing his versatility, being able to get off the Boulder Motorsport Ducati and then right on to this electric Energica, and he'll carry the number 137 plate. And I said this morning at the Monument, I got a feeling Mesa is going to get the whole shot off the start, and he'll be right in there. They have worked on that bike, of course, developing it throughout the 2023 season, and I think this bike will be even stronger. He ended up fourth in the Super Hooligans Championship.
Yeah.
So you know the bike is competitive. I think he did finish on the podium at COTA. So the bike, certainly available to run up front.
Yeah. And one of the other riders I think everyone should keep an eye on out of the Junior Cup class, Hunter Dunham, he's going to be on a Ducati Hyper Motard, which, it's the only Ducati Hyper Motard in the field. So that should be exciting as well. Also sponsored by Mission Foods this year is King of the Baggers. So that's, of course, why a lot of the Harley riders come to the races nowadays. The number one of Hayden Gillum, the Owensboro, Kentucky rider on the big Revzilla Motul Vance and Hines Harley Davidson. That's he's going to defend that number one plate, and he's still got to be the guy to beat.
Yeah, Hayden Gillum is going to be tough, no doubt about it. Very, very talented rider, coming up through Super Sports, Superbike. He is big, but these baggers, looking at the lap times, Kenny, from last March and even last October when a number of riders were here using the ASRA Fall Cycle Scene road races to prepare for the event here in March, that they were turning lap times very close to the Super Sport machines. Minute 50s, a minute 51s. I would not be surprised that the pole time for the Mission King of the Baggers class is well into the minute 49s. They have developed and worked on these motorcycles. They're handling better. They're getting through the air better. And you talk about drafting. To look at the drafting effect on these big bikes, because they're pushing so much air, is incredible. Particularly when you get a double draft and that guy who is the third rider in the group is just able to absolutely blast by the other two riders.
I feel like if you can get 2 or 3 of these guys in a draft in qualifying, you might see a high 48. I don't know why that's a number for me, but I feel like there might be a 48 there somewhere. But Hayden Gillum will be defending the number 1 plate. Travis Wyman out of Las Vegas on the number 10. Ruben Zaus on the Fueling Parts Harley Davidson.
Yeah, interesting. Former World Superbike front runner. He's in his, I think, about 47, maybe 48 years old now. But Ruben Zaus, I think, is going to be one of the riders who could surprise some people here at Daytona. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience here at the Speedway, but he's a fast learner, and I think he's going to be right there on the Fueling Parts. They're a Harley Davidson aftermarket performance parts company, and
Corey West is there. Now, here's what's interesting to me. You have number 17, Troy Herfoss, the Australian national superbike champion, teamed up with Tyler O'Hara on the SNS Indian. And this isn't like Troy Herfoss stepping onto a privateer Indian or a privateer Harley Davidson. This is him stepping onto a championship contending Indian. And this is going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, remember Jeremy McWilliams was teamed up in this class with O'Hara. And Herfoss, again, another one of those riders, the talent is going to show, even though he's got almost no experience here. I don't think he's ever turned a lap here at Daytona.
Yeah. Jesse Janisch makes a return. Jesse Janisch was involved in a really bad accident last year at Blackhawk Farms Raceway and had and it was bad news. So this is the first time he's returning to racing back on a motorcycle with the Sly Fox Suburban Motors Harley Davidson team based out of the Midwest. He's a Wisconsin guy, so we like to see him up there. But he's going to be trying to run with the big boys here. Kyle Wyman on the number 33, obviously a defending champion, part of the factory Harley Davidson team with James Rispoli. Bobby Fong is back. Danny Eslick is back. Kyle Onsong is back. This is Jake Lewis is on a bagger as well as the Super Hooligans bike. Rocco Landers makes his debut. He was one of the winningest riders in the Twins Cup and in the Junior Cup. And he'll be on one of the Suzukis in the Twins Cup, and this is his debut on a Vance and Hines Harley Davidson this year. He'll be on the number 97 with
teammate to Hayden Gillum. Yeah, I think with all these 2-rider and in some case 3-rider teams, they're going to try to work together and figure it out in the draft. So qualifying, I think, in the Mission King of the Baggers class is going to be very interesting. How many dancing partners are you going to have out there trying to draft around the Speedway? And one rider who I don't think gets enough credit, Shane Narbonne, out of Lowell, Mass, on the Trask Performance Harley-Davidson. They've been winning all of the Bagger Racing League championships. That, of course, is another Bagger Racing series. And I know that ASRA has started its Bagger class as well. So
this partnership with them,
this whole Bagger class is just going to continue to grow and grow. So it should be a great Mission King of the Baggers.
Yeah, we mentioned that Rocco Landers is debuting the Suzuki GSX 8R. He'll be riding the number 97 machine. He's out of LA, but it's also going to be for the Revzilla Motul Vance & Hines Suzuki team. And a lot of people don't know Vance & Hines Suzuki has also been building the Vance & Hines Suzuki drag race bikes as well. So it's a new motorcycle, but I guarantee they've had that bike for a while, and I guarantee it's going to be really, really fast.
Yeah, well, it's great to have Suzuki added to the brands for Twins Cup, because we've had the Yamaha R7s and the Aprilia RS660s for a number of years now, and you get that Suzuki in there, and they've got some talented riders and some very strong teams. Would not be surprised to see a Suzuki on the podium.
And as we mentioned, Bellissimoto is the brand new sponsor for the Twins Cup. It'll be interesting to see Dominic Doyle and Caleb DeCarroll go at it again this year. Ben Galati, of course, one of the top contenders out of New Hampshire. We should see them going at it. Gus Rodeo's been here for a few days already. He's been hanging out over at the flat track. I think he's itching to just go around in circles here. Ray Hoffman, who's always been really, really strong in Twins racing. He's on one of the Aprilia 660s. He's always been really fast at Daytona, but it's going to be a little harder for him to keep up with some of the young guys.
And we've got a little bit of international flair in the Twins Cup. Edwin Cosme out of Puerto Rico, one of a number of international riders here, as well as Ed Sullivan from West Sussex, England. He'll be on one of the Yamaha R7s.
And remember, Ed Sullivan was down here in the fall cleaning up in all of the Twins classes. That R7 is dialed in here and ready to go. So you gotta believe he's going to be trying to hunt for the draft here and try to get up onto the podium as well. So that's the Bellissimoto Twins Cup race. And then we move right into the premier event here, the 82nd Daytona 200, which is the super sport rules here for Moto America. The number one plate of Xavi Forés, the Spaniard on the Attack Performance Progressive Yamaha Racing. He'll be on an R6. He's going to be obviously hunting for to defend that number one plate. Xavi Forés was on the Ducati last year. That spot now taken. Essentially, Josh Herron will be on the Warhorse HSBK Ducati. And there are a lot of other Ducatis in this field this year. The Rahal Racing team obviously will have 3 of them, and I have a feeling that we've already talked about the fact that this is probably one of the most contentious Daytona 200s that we will probably see in the last few decades. And part of it is because there are more manufacturers. There's Yamahas, Kawasaki's, Ducatis, the Suzuki's 750 now is part of it, and as well as the Triumphs that are still competitive.
Yeah, interesting that Graham Rahal, who of course owns, I believe, a couple of Ducati dealerships, would step up with this team. I know this announcement, I think, came early in the fall, and when we were here at Daytona in October, the speculation was who would be the riders, and they had announced a 2-rider team. And we were kicking around a lot of names. Caleb Yakov was one of them that was being kicked around. And as it turns out, Kayla, who's an extremely talented young lady, got one of those rides along with PJ Jacobson, who's been around a long time. I can remember watching PJ Jacobson when he was racing 125 Grand Prix bikes coming up through
Celtic
the ranks.
Racing,
And so those were the first two riders announced. And then Corey Alexander, he was announced late, not on the same sponsorship or livery on the bike, but he is right there. And one of the guys he's working with, and they were at Jennings for their, I think they had either a 2 or maybe even a 3-day test, is Carl Steyer, who worked with you when you were with the Jordan Suzuki team. Carl is a very respected guy. He's a master electrician by trade, but a very, very talented technician.
And a Canadian.
Yeah, and there's a few of those down there, as is Rick Hobbs, the race director with Moto America. But that Rahal team, I think they are going to really impress because, first of all, Graham hired a guy who certainly knows his way around a racetrack and how to win championships.
You're talking about Ben Spies,
Ben
maybe?
Spies, yes. And Ben, of course, knows who all the good guys are, and I'm sure he handpicked a lot of the crew on those teams.
Yeah.
So those Ducatis are going to be ready to rock out here tomorrow morning.
Yeah, they were here when we rolled in last night, and I went over there, and I almost felt like I was walking into a Jordan Suzuki team meeting. There was a good handful of people there that were on our Jordan Suzuki team, people that had worked for the Valvoline Suzuki team in the past that Spies was comfortable with. And so it's going to be interesting. And just so you guys know, we're going to get inside that team a little bit over the weekend and have some interviews with some of those team members as well. But they're a very stacked team. If it's hard to count out guys like Xavi Forés. It's hard to count out guys like Josh Herron, Joshua Hayes, who still hasn't won his Daytona 200.
Yeah, he is overdue. And of course, Danny Eslick, 4 wins, trying to tie Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel as the 5-time Daytona 200 champions.
One of the cool stories that developed before this race was the number 4 of Josh Hayes from California. He's on a CSU, which stands for Colorado State University One Cure J-Force Racing, and essentially they're still trying to find cures for cancer. And so it's just a really interesting partnership with Colorado State University to get behind him on this. So that's one of the cool stories, and we'll bring you a little bit more out of that. The 3 Yart Racing Yamaha riders are in this class who won the World Endurance Championship last year on Yamaha. So those 3 teammates will be in it. We already talked about the 3 Rahal teammates who should be very competitive. The top 5 guys we already talked about. Blake Davis, who's been very, very fast. You can't count out Blake Davis. Stefano Mesa, number 37 on a brand new Ducati out of Boulder Motorsports. He's got to be looked at as a contender as well. And of course, all this will start to shake out tomorrow morning. Bobby Fong is back in the race on the Wrench Motorcycle Suzuki GSXR 750. Richie Escalante, one of the former Supersport champions, is in it. Carl Soltis, who's always in the race.
Yeah, Soltis, one of the real good privateers. He has been right there pretty consistently, top 10, top 15 in the Supersport class in Motor America, particularly when they get to some of his favorite tracks like Road America. Don't count out Super Carl. I don't know if he's got the speed and the pace given the depth of the field for the 200.
Anything
but
can happen.
I think something in the top 10 would be good. And of course, Brandon Posh, what a great story that first year where he won the 200, beating Sean Dillon Kelly and donated half his winnings to, and I'm just drawing a blank now on Lloyd Bailey. Lloyd Bailey's family, after Lloyd tragically lost his life while racing, in South Florida.
Yeah.
And Maverick Sear, number 104, we mentioned that young Canadian amateur champion, a rookie expert, a rookie in the Daytona 200. And his bike is a tribute to the late Chris Ellis, who was the guy behind Triumph's return to the Daytona 200. And Kenny, I remember after Eslick won on that Triumph, they had an amazing victory party across the way here at a steakhouse just across from the Speedway. So I think it's going to be a learning race for Maverick Sear. I think he needs to certainly push it, but finish the race and get a solid finish in. So we'll be following him closely.
Yeah, you've also got the number 70 of Tyler Scott, the Vision Wheels M4 X-Star Suzuki rider who's teamed with Teague Hobbs this year.
He was the guy who won the Loudon Classic at its 100th anniversary. That race that was red flagged 9 times, and he eventually won. Picked up the first place check, I think, of about $50,000 or $55,000. And the purse is exactly that this year again. That is June the 8th at New Hampshire International Speedway. Yep. But keep an eye on Tyler Scott. He is going to be right there as well.
Ben Young, Danilo Lewis will be number 74. He's a Brazilian rider, former Brazilian national champion. Hayden Gillum on the number 95 machine out of Owensboro, Kentucky, riding for Vesser Racing. Remember Mark Young from Vesser? Yep. Incredible superbike rider and endurance racer. So he's got him behind him this year. We mentioned Brandon Posh, Carol Hanukkah on another one of the Yart riders, Tony Blackhall's race team, Harry Truelove, one of the UK riders from the Truelove Brothers Racing, and they'll be on a GSXR 750.
Yeah, they were here in the fall on those brand new GSXR 750s. Yep. After having run Yamahas here in the past, and
Harry and Matt,
they were on Pirelli rubber here when they came to Daytona in the fall, but I believe they have made the switch to Bridgestone, as a number of riders have here so far.
Yep.
And of course, we've got on the PHR Performance Triumphs, Richard Cooper, who was here, I think, back in 2008, finished 5th this first year, so he knows the track. He's on a factory-supported Triumph, so he's going to be there along with Peter Hickman, who, of course, is a 13-time Isle of Man champion, and Hickman making his debut here at Daytona.
Yep, absolutely. Max Anglis, who's another very, very fast rider here. We saw him here in the spring, or in the fall rather, on his Kawasaki, one of the very fast riders who was, always in the lead draft there, contending for national championships. This is going to be, as we mentioned, one of the most contentious Daytona 200s that we've seen in a long, long time. A lot of international riders, some really good teams that have come over with strong riders. And not only, we've had strong riders in the past, but sort of a privateer effort, not a strong team. You have a lot of really strong riders with really strong teams this year. It's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to see how the first practice session shakes out tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it should be outstanding. And Kenny, we've been talking leading up to the Daytona 200 Bike Week here, looking at just how close and talent-laden the field is. It's not just the rider. They have got to have a very strong, experienced team to get them in and out of the pits with fresh rubber and gas. Yeah. And I think that's where this race could very well be won or lost. And when you look at a team like Yart, that's all they do in those World Endurance. They're going to bring over some of their most skilled and fastest people on those pit stops.
And it's not even about the parts, it's the timing. It's the personal timing, knowing it's the muscle memory of timing. We were watching teams get ready last night out in the parking lot, and teams are practicing over here in the paddock in the garages. It's going to take about 10 seconds to dump a full can of fuel. 10 seconds. So if you can get everything else done in 10 seconds, you're going to be one of the fastest teams off pit road. What it looks like to me from looking at the teams that I was watching, most of the very fast pit stops times are going to be around 11 or 12 seconds. If they can stay under 12 seconds, they're going to make up some serious time on pit road. It looks like the average times are going to be somewhere between 12 and 15. And if you're slower than 15, you're going to lose time on pit road.
Yeah. A couple of other things about the pit stops. We'll check tonight. We're meeting up with Rick Hobbs, our good friend who we've known for decades, who's done, I think, an outstanding job as the race director with Moto America. I believe it's 60 miles an hour. There is a speed limit. Remember, Brandon Posh lost a bunch of spots last year when he was caught speeding on pit road. So that's going to be very, very important for the Daytona 200 to make sure that you're not speeding during those two scheduled
Follow the
pit
rules.
stops. Yeah, indeed.
Yep. So a lot coming up with Cycle Vision Network and Moto America and Progressive AFT this week. Make sure you stick with us again. Make sure you follow the podcast and make sure you share it with all your friends. We got a few things to wrap up here, and there's a couple dinners that we got to get Pat out to his dinner so he can take care of 32 very special VIP guests. And but make sure you join us through the weekend. Make sure you're following us on Cycle Vision Network for all the cool exhaust noise podcast stuff. And we're going to put it out on different social media. So you'll see it on TikTok. You'll see it on our website and everything else. But as long as you stick with us here on our Facebook page, you'll catch everything live from the weekend. A lot of other stuff going on, Pat. I know you've got some more news about some of the things happening. What are some of the things you're excited about over the next couple days?
Well, certainly I'm going to be spending most of the next 3 days at the Speedway. After we get away from the Over the Hill Gang breakfast tomorrow, we'll be coming right here just to see what some of those early top practice times are. And then spending the rest of the day, we're going to hope to get over to the short track at least one night to check out the action there. But just in and around the Daytona Marketplace is an amazing spot. We're going to go and check that out. I've got some T-shirt orders to fill for people back home who didn't get a chance to get down here. And I've got the golf clubs in the car, but I haven't used them yet. Maybe on Sunday. But
I thought about packing them. I was already overloaded, and I said, "There's absolutely no way I'm going to get 4 hours to play golf." But I wanted to acknowledge a couple things that you and Richard are doing for the Speedway. They have, well, I'll say thousands and thousands of vintage photos of racing here at the Speedway. And unfortunately, they don't know who everybody is that's in those photos. And luckily enough, between yourself and Richard Chambers, you have a wealth of knowledge of who some of these guys are. And Richard actually raced against a lot of these guys. So you guys are spending a lot of time with the Speedway archives department identifying who a lot of these motorcyclists are so that they can properly record them in the history of the Daytona race.
Yeah, well, I spent Monday, a good portion of Monday and Tuesday, along with Richard, just going through, we must have gone through 400 photographs. I want to share with the folks out there just a couple of those. So if they've got 3 copies of the photo, those go in the file. And Richard and I think with the exception of a few of the photos from the beach and for some of the multi-rider crashes at the chicane, we were able to identify quite a few of them. But if you can see this off of the camera, they had about 10 copies of this. This is a young Freddie Spencer, 1985 at Daytona, winning the first time the 200 was contested as a superbike class.
Wow.
And of course, Freddie went on to win Formula One and the 250 race, the only time that has ever been done. So they've got some incredible photos. And if somebody's working on a research project, doing a documentary, it's a great source.
Wow.
And they had a bunch of these as well. Of course, last year we paid tribute to the late John Ashmead, Michael Barnes going out there and doing a lap in his honor.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of these number 37.
Would you say 1989 winners?
1989 right? Daytona 200 winners. So, and as we said, if you buy the VIP tour, which I think is about $55, not only do you get the tram to go around the Speedway and go on the banking, you also get to visit the Daytona archives. So, our work there isn't done. We'll be back over there in October. But Kate Sayers, wonderful young lady who's heading that up and looking to get all that stuff. But that's just the motorcycle stuff. If you're a NASCAR fan, man, they have got just filing cabinets and filing cabinets of
Well, thanks for
photos.
everything that you guys are doing there as well. Because, obviously just, just recording the history and preserving the history. And the fact that you guys have stepped in to try to help them do that is amazing. So thanks for your time.
No, it's been great, and look forward to working with you over the next 3 days to bring the folks out there as much of the goings on here at Daytona, and we'll be into those early practice times and qualifying round 1 for the Daytona 200 coming up tomorrow.
And another point to kind of wrap up, you have a new gig in Canada. Let's talk a little bit about that, because what a great resource for racing, Rev TV.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, Kenny. I had retired when I turned 68 from my longtime job at Q107 at Chorus up in Toronto, and they were very, very kind and generous with me. And after retiring for a couple of years, still doing some announcing and that, this opportunity came up with Rev TV, which is our motorsport and motorcycle and automotive channel in Canada. And they carry MotoGP, World Superbike. We're going to be carrying the Isle of Man, and also looking at perhaps even carrying some of the Moto America races on Second Play. I mean, all those discussions are ongoing. Also looking at perhaps the Loudon Classic as well. So it's a small company. It'll only be 4 years old in May, and I'm absolutely having a blast. They're selling advertising for them. And Honda stepped up. They're sponsoring our MotoGP and World Superbike coverage. And a lot more work to be done. But we're having an absolute blast. Doesn't even feel like a job, because I'm doing all this stuff that I absolutely love.
Yeah. Well, let us help you. Let's make sure that everybody goes and follows Rev TV Canada. Make sure you're liking and following all their pages, and make sure that you're subscribing to everything that they have there. Again, they're bringing motorsports alive. They're promoting motorsports. So let's make sure that we're helping to promote them and get them out there and help them be successful. It's going to help. The more people that are following, the easier it's going to be for Pat to sell ads for it. So let's make sure we're supporting Pat and the Rev TV folks by going on all their social media outlets and liking all them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Kenny. And I work with just a great group of small company, as we said, Mike Garrow and Ed Canerva, who's an avid motorcyclist. Great people to work with, and we're just having an absolute blast working for Rev TV right now. And Daytona will always be special. As I said, 50 years of coming down here, and I've met so many incredible people, and we met a bunch more out at the monument today, including John Gregory. We'll give him a birthday wish. He turns 90 years young tomorrow. Wow. And what a great individual.
Yeah, I was spending a few minutes talking to you and Richard down there, and I turned around and there was Jimmy Felice. I almost tripped over him. And he's such a great guy and such an enthusiast of motorcycle racing. And the funny thing is, the last few years that I've seen Jimmy at the racetracks and everything, it's hard to even think that he's working, but you know that he is. But he's so enthusiastic about just being around races and his attitude, and and he's so gracious to his fans. And I hope that this generation coming up appreciates the fans and the racing and the industry as much as Jimmy does, because he really puts a great face on it.
Great, Kenny.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Our inaugural show from Daytona International Speedway here. We're going to be bringing you live footage every day. We're going to have a recap every day of everything that's happening here, and then watch through the day, as well as we'll do some live behind the wall interviews with teams, riders, and sponsors. So stick with us. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Cycle Vision Network and the first ever Exhaust Noise podcast from Daytona International Speedway. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Take care.
Bye-bye.